Basketball endures tough times on the road.
And we'll update you on all things Texas baseball. Keep it here. It's College Press Box. Good evening and welcome into College Press Box. I'm Jeff Barker. He's Reese Miller. Reese, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great, Jeff. Great to be here with you. How you doing?
Yeah, doing great, man. Glad to be on set with you again.
Excellent, absolutely.
Yeah, rough weekend for Texas men's basketball team, though. What'd you take away from this weekend?
Big time struggles offensively and defensively. Lack of overall consistency. I think you really have to be concerned if you're the Texas Longhorns. Granted, they did play in some hostile territory, and unfortunately came out with a pretty crummy result overall on the week. So last Tuesday, the Longhorns played their first of two games in Ames, Iowa against the Cyclones. Texas got off to a sluggish start and fell behind by 9 points at the half. But after taking the lead late in the ballgame, the Longhorns struggled shooting in the final minutes. And three Cyclones finished with 20 or more points, and the Longhorns went down 85-76.
On Saturday, Texas dropped their second straight game when they traveled to Lawrence to take on the Kansas Jayhawks. Kansas freshman phenom Andrew Wiggins led the way, scoring 15 points in the first half to help give his team a massive 48-16 lead going into halftime. The Horns weren't able to formulate any sort of comeback in the second half and went on to lose 85-54. Yes, Reese, that score is a real score. Now let's take a closer look at Texas's struggles this past week. What exactly went wrong, and what do they need to correct moving forward?
Man, big-time struggles. I think if you're Rick Barnes, he loves the defense, loves the defensive side of the ball, and I think the thing you have to be most concerned about is the lack of transition defense. I mean, they were blown out by the Kansas Jayhawks. It wasn't even close. Granted, they were very competitive with the Iowa State Cyclones on the road, and both games are tough places to play against good basketball teams in the Big 12. Let's not discount those teams, but overall, big-time struggles for this team. Shooting percentages way down. Lack of consistency from Javon Felix. Isaiah Taylor against Kansas was 1 of 14 from the field. You got to be better than that if you're the point guard and the leader for this Texas basketball team. And at the same time, the inside game that they dominated against Kansas and Iowa State, the blocks, the rebounds, it wasn't there. And I think you have to be majorly concerned if you're Rick Barnes and the Texas Longhorns right now from this last week.
Absolutely. And what do you think this past week of games shows us about Texas's potential limitations in tournament play with 4 games left in the regular season, then the Big 12 tournament, and then after that, obviously, the NCAA tournament?
I think you have to be extremely worried. I mean, go back a couple weeks ago and almost a loss at TCU to a team that it's now 0-14 in the Big 12 conference. And then you got blown out, the Texas Longhorns did, by Kansas State. That should have been the game to wake you up, not in Allen Fieldhouse this past Saturday. So I think you have to be big-time concerned. Granted, they still have one of the best resumes in college basketball with wins, big-time wins on the road and at home against some really tough teams. Still don't have a bad loss, but I think this definitely shows that this Texas team is extremely young and very vulnerable going forward as we look forward to tournament play, Big 12 tournament, and March Madness as we get going.
Definitely. Well, the other basketball team here on the 40 acres, the Texas women's basketball team, also hit the road for 2 tough games of their own.
Yes, the Texas women's basketball team traveled to Norman, Oklahoma to face their rival Sooners. On the verge of making the NCAA tournament, the Longhorns played in a tie one throughout. In a back-and-forth contest, Chastity Feazell had a chance to win it, but missed a layup with only 19 seconds left. And despite double-digit performances from Nneka Inimpalati and Feazell, Oklahoma pulled this one out 64-63.
The struggles continued for the women's squad when they traveled to Ames to take on the number 23 Iowa State Cyclones Saturday night. The Horns kept things close until just about 7 minutes left in the second half when the Cyclones broke a 51-51 tie and went on to outscore the Horns 30-13. The game ended with a final score of 81-64, but one bright side for Texas was the play of sophomore Imani McGee-Stafford, who had a career-high 26 points as well as 8 rebounds and another career-high 4 assists. Coming up next, Texas baseball analyst Mark Robertson will join us for an in-depth analysis and preview of the Longhorns season. You don't want to miss this. Stay here. It's College Press Box. Welcome back to College Press Box. Reese, your favorite sport, college baseball, finally kicked off here in Austin. Excited about that?
Absolutely, I am. It should be a fun season. And on Tuesday, after a 2-2 start from their series at California, the Longhorns hosted the Texas A&M Corpus Christi Islanders in their home opener at Disch-Falk Field. Let's head there for the highlights. Texas players taking the field for the first time this season at the Dish. We go to the top one now, runners on the corners, and a line drive to center fielder Mark Payton. But don't test the cannon. He comes in and he will gun out the runner at home to maintain the tie. And we will head to the bottom of the first now. CJ Hinojosa, ground ball up the middle. That'll plate Mark Payton, and Texas will take the lead 1-0. Bottom of the fifth now. Texas already up 3-0. CJ Hinojosa, line drive deep down left field, scoring Mark Payton once again, and Texas takes the lead, extends the lead 4-0 now. Still bottom five with 2 outs. Trace Barrera up now, the freshman, and a high pop-up that should be corralled by the shortstop. But, oh no, that's going to plate 2 more. Texas now 8-0. It is an absolute rout. Bottom 8, Texas up 9-0. CJ Hinojosa flies out deep to center field. That's going to plate Ben Johnson, and Texas will run rule the Islanders 10-0 in their home opener.
After getting the win in their Tuesday matchup, the Longhorns hosted a 3-game series with the number 25 ranked Stanford Cardinal. Let's take it out to UFCU Disch-Falk Field for the highlights from Game 1. Bottom of the first, Texas down 1-0. Freshman Andy McGuire flies one out to center field. Brooks Marlowe would score on the sac fly. Texas tied 1-1 with Stanford heading into the second inning. Bottom of the second inning here, bats finally start to heat up. Senior Mark Payton cracks one out to right center field. Marlowe and Johnson would score on the play. The 2 RBIs for Payton put Texas up 3-1 and get them started on what would be a huge bottom of the second inning for them. Hinojosa steps up to the plate now. Pitcher in the windup. Smacks another one out to right center field. Payton scores on the play. The shortstop's RBI makes it 4-1 Texas. Freshman Andy McGuire back up at the plate again. And he hits yet another one out to right center field. Seems like everybody for Texas was hitting him out there in the bottom of the second. As I said, huge inning. Clemens gets to third. Hinojosa scores on that. Texas breaking away 5-1. They'd go on to win 9-3.
And on Saturday, Augie Garrido getting ready for Game 2 as Casey Clemens is going to line that one out to shortstop, but it's thrown away by the shortstop, and Texas is going to take the 1-0 lead. And Mark Payton will advance to third, Clemens to second. Still bottom first, Andy McGuire is going to chop this one to third base, but it will plague Mark Payton, and Texas will take the 2-0 lead. We'll head to the top of the 7th inning, and Hopauer will smash one into left field. That's going to score Dunlap and Blandino, and Stanford's going to tie it up at 2 in this one. Bottom of the 7th now, still tied, but Mark Payton unties this one, a smash up the middle of the plate. Ben Johnson of Texas takes the lead 3-2. Back to the top of the 8th, Blandino smashes out into left field down the line. That's going to score Slater, and once again we're tied at 3. Now bottom 9, CJ Hinojosa up trying to win it, but he won't have to. That's thrown away, and this one will be a walk-off winner as Colin Shaw comes home and Texas gets the victory 4-3 over the Cardinal.
All right, let's take a look at Game 3 now. Augie chatting it up with the umpires before the game. That relationship wouldn't stay clean for long, though. First play of the game, or top of the first, Wayne Taylor hits a ground ball to Brooks Marlowe to CJ Hinojosa, who finishes the double play. Top of the second, bases loaded for Stanford's Wayne Taylor. Hits the bases clearing triple into center field to put the Cardinal up early, 4-0. Let's see if Texas can come back here. Moving on to the top of the 3rd inning now, Augie Garrido exchanges words with umpire Tim Henderson about a balk call on the field. Does his best Jim Boeheim impersonation from Saturday night. Gets ejected from the game. After a triple by Ben Johnson here, Zane Gerwitz finally gets Texas on the board with an RBI single in the bottom of the 5th. Texas still down 5-1 though. Top of the 6th inning here, Stanford's Austin Slater hits the ball down the third baseline just past the outstretched glove of Andy McGuire. That would score 2 runs. Cardinal would go on to win 11-5. After the Horns dropped their series finale, I caught up with players and coaches for reactions to Sunday's game and their first home series of the year.
After beating Stanford in the first 2 games of their 3-game series, number 22 Texas fell short Sunday in the series finale.
What really happened was both teams played damn near the same game. The difference in the two teams was a triple with the bases loaded and a home run to left field.
The game began to get out of hand for Texas in the top of the third inning when Garrido was ejected, but the team appreciated the fire and intensity he showed while standing up for them.
Really thankful that he did that. I mean, that he trusts us and we trust him. We're going to fight for him and he's going to fight for us, and that's the biggest thing, that we all trust each other.
Oh, we get fired up, no doubt. He's a very even keel man. So to see when he comes out and he fights for us like that, it lit a fire under all of us to go out there and compete and fight not only for our team but for him as well.
Even though the Longhorns weren't able to come up with a series sweep against the Stanford Cardinal, Coach Augie Garrido and the players still thought it was an overall successful weekend and a great learning experience for the team.
I think that it was successful. I mean, the winning's one part of it, but the learning experience is another part of it.
We played well all week, and we're happy with where we're at, and we still have momentum. We're going to come out and get some work in tomorrow and get ready for Tuesday.
Next week, the Longhorns will take on UT Pan American at home before hitting the road for the Houston College Classic. Jeff Barker, College Press Box. As promised, we are now joined by KVRX's Texas baseball analyst, Mark Robertson. Mark, how are you this evening?
I'm great, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Let's get right into it. Mark Payton, the defending Big 12 Player of the Week, and he was only retired once this past weekend, went 9 for 10. What does he mean to this Texas lineup, and can he continue his hot play?
Payton's red hot right now. He's an outstanding hitter. You had great production from him last season. Texas is really looking forward to him stepping up in a leadership role this season because there are so many young freshmen in this lineup this year. He's a senior starter, and they're really going to look to him to get the at-bats that he had last season and continue his great production.
Yeah, I think Mark Payton only retired once this entire series. He really sets the table for this Texas lineup. He and Brooks Marlowe, CJ Hinojosa, those are sort of the veteran guys in the core of this Texas lineup to really set the table for the guys later on in the lineup, the freshmen trying to come up with the clutch hits later in the ballgame. So right now, Mark Payton red hot, and I expect him to continue that throughout the season.
All right, guys, well, it was announced this past week that longtime starter Nathan Thornhill has been designated as the team's closer. Is this the right move, and do you think it leaves a void in that starting lineup for Texas? Mark, what are your thoughts?
It's a smart move. Nathan Thornhill is a senior. He's a very dependable pitcher in the Texas lineup, and he's going to take that closing role and really get outs, get in there at the right time, and really take care of business. But it's going to leave a gap in your third starting pitching rotation in your lineup. The two pitchers that Texas has going for them right now are Dylan Peters and Parker French, and those two guys are really going to be outstanding when it comes to stepping up in a leadership role. Those are two upperclassmen. They're very good pitchers, and those guys are really counted on to get those first two games in the series. That third game, however, is going to go to Blake Goins, or it's going to go to one of the relievers, such as Josh Swords or one of the other guys, and they're going to try and slot in and really take care of that third position.
Reese, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Mark mentioned it. This is an extremely talented Texas staff, and Nathan Thornhill is a veteran guy who's pitched a lot of big-time games for Texas. And, Augie Garrido was sort of looking for the closer and the guy to solidify the end of these ball games. And I think Thornhill is the guy. Augie said he loves the way he controls runners, loves his approach, the way he goes after hitters. And let's not forget this Texas rotation really has four guys who can start over the weekend, including Thornhill. You've got Schiraldi, Peters, and Parker French, all really consistent starters. He mentioned Blake Goins is doing a nice job. Josh Sawyer out of the bullpen. So overall, an extremely solid Texas staff. And I think putting a veteran guy at the back end of the pen, we've seen Augie do this with guys before and have tremendous success with it. And I can only expect the same from Thornhill.
Absolutely. Well, last question here. Extremely young lineup that Texas has featuring four freshmen. Mark, who stands out to you, and who's the biggest key to Texas' success?
Well, what's really noticeable to me is that in the first three games against Stanford, he started Casey Clemens in the fourth spot behind CJ Hinojosa. He's really looking to Casey Clemens to take on a big role in this offense, and we really need the younger freshmen in the bottom of the lineup to get going if Texas has any chance of making it big in the Big 12 this season.
Yeah, if you look at the bottom of the lineup, you've got guys like Zane Gerwitz, and Trace Barrera is a guy that sticks out to me, a guy that absolutely he's had some really nice at-bats, crushed the ball a few times. The box score doesn't really show it with some hard flyouts, but had an overall nice start to the season. Andy McGuire at the same time. Andy McGuire and Trace Barrera really struggling there in the 5 and the 7 holes right now. Texas needs big-time production with all the youth. This was the number 2 recruiting class from a season ago. The guys at the top are going to set the table, and can Casey Clemens, Trace Barrera, Gerwitz, and McGuire really come up clutch later in the lineup? I think that's the key to Texas' success this season. We know they're going to have a solid starting staff. Can their lineup produce to keep up with that staff? We'll see.
All righty, well, Mark, thanks again for joining us tonight. That's going to do it for our Texas baseball preview.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
And coming up on College Press Box, we'll tell you how Texas softball fared over the weekend. Stay right with us. Thanks for sticking with us on College Press Box. Texas softball traveled to Palm Springs, California to partake in the Mary Nutter Classic tournament this past weekend. In the first game of the tourney, Texas fell under 500 on the season after a 4-5 defeat to UNLV. In their second game, their offense exploded, led by Taylor Thom and Lindsey Stevens with 4 RBI each to down Cal Poly 13-7. In Game 3 against Washington, Lindsey Stevens drove in the only 2 runs of the game with a bomb to center field for Texas, but they dropped another close one, this time to the Huskies 3-2.
In their 4th game of the weekend, the Horns notched their first shutout win of the year in a 5-0 victory over Fresno State. Junior Gabby Smith pitched a complete game 1-hitter, and sophomore Lindsey Stevens homered for the 3rd straight game to help lead the Longhorns to victory. In the final game of the tournament, Texas was able to rally back from an early 2-run deficit to tie the game at 2, but ultimately went on to lose 5-2 to the California Golden Bears to wrap up what was an unsuccessful tournament for the Longhorns.
The number 6 Texas men's tennis team earned its 10th win of the season when they defeated UT Arlington 6-1. Junior Clement Holmes clinched the victory at the number 5 singles position. This victory improved UT's home record to 4-0 and their ITA Texas region opponents record to 3 victories and 0 defeats on the season.
The tennis team continued to play well and beat Texas A&M Corpus Christi 6-1 Sunday night to complete their doubleheader. They were led by senior All-American David Holiner and junior Clement Holmes, who both came through with early straight set victories to put the Horns up 3-0. The team will have a few days to rest before heading to Fort Worth to take on the TCU Horned Frogs in their next match.
The number 20 men's golf team traveled to Humble, Texas to participate in the Bayou City Intercollegiate Championship this past weekend. Kramer Hickok, Gavin Hall, Tony Hackula, and Bo Hostler all finished in the top 10 for the Longhorns. Ultimately, Texas finished in the runner-up position, matching their season's best result. And coming up on College Press Box, we'll give you a recap of women's golf, take a look at UT Rugby, and what's going on in the 40 acres this week. Stay with us.
Thanks for sticking with us tonight on College Press Box. A quick update on the women's golf team currently in action in New Orleans, competing in the All-State Sugar Bowl. After a tough start on Sunday in which they shot a combined 301 for 13 over par, the Longhorns struggled again this afternoon, shooting 300 for 12 over par and remain in last place. Tournament play will wrap up tomorrow as the Horns look to salvage something positive from their trip to the Bayou State.
The Texas rugby team took on TCU over the weekend. The Horned Frogs scored first in a competitive back-and-forth contest. In the second half, Texas kept up the pace and began to create separation as they took the lead. In the end, Texas was able to overpower TCU with their physicality. The Longhorns continued their dominant play with a 34-22 victory over the Horned Frogs, and they are now undefeated at 4-0 on the season. Now more from members of the rugby team on their win over TCU.
TCU was a lot bigger than every team we've played so far, so that was a challenge. We were also without our captain, Peter Himes, and he's a big part of our forward pack. So not having him in there was a bit of a struggle, but we bared down and got to it, stayed low, and played pretty well and came out with victory today.
I knew we had the win at the beginning of the game, and then when Taylor scored the try in the corner right there, thought that really solidified the game for us. And I thought after that the game was kind of ours, so we just dominated. Really, from the second half, I thought we played much better than the first half and just dominated the game.
Before we wrap up, let's take a quick look at what's happening this week in Texas sports. Earlier today, women's golf wrapped up second-round play at the All-State Sugar Bowl. Tomorrow, Tuesday, the 25th, baseball versus UT Pan American, 4:30 at home. Women's basketball at home versus TCU, 7:30 p.m. And women's golf will wrap up play at the All-State Sugar Bowl.
And on Wednesday, men's basketball takes on the Baylor Bears at 8 p.m. at home. And Wednesday through Saturday, men and women swimming and diving Big 12 championships will be right here in Austin, Texas.
Friday the 28th, women's tennis at home against Houston, 2:30 p.m. Softball takes on Louisiana Monroe at 4 p.m. Softball again for their doubleheader versus Southern Mississippi. That's 6:30 p.m. And baseball travels to Rice, play them at 7 p.m. From Friday to Saturday, the track and field and cross country teams will compete in the Big 12 Indoor Championships.
And on Saturday, baseball travels to Houston. That game's at 3:30. Men's basketball takes on the Oklahoma Sooners also at 3 p.m. Men's tennis goes to Fort Worth to take on TCU at 1 p.m. Women's basketball goes to Lubbock to take on Texas Tech at 2 p.m. Rowing's at the heart of Texas right here in Austin as well. Soccer versus Monterey Tech at 7 p.m. on Saturday. Softball plays two games, the first versus Texas Southern at 1 p.m. and the next one versus Louisiana Monroe at 6:30 p.m.
Sunday Funday, March 2nd, baseball travels to Sam Houston State. Play that game at 10 a.m. Softball at home versus Texas Southern, 2 p.m. And women's tennis takes on USC at 12 p.m. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in to another episode of College Press Box. You can follow us on Twitter at College Press Box for some of the best sports debate here on the 40 acres. You can tune into our sister show, College Crossfire, Wednesday nights at 9:30 p.m. For Master Control, the camera crew, Mark Robertson, Reese Miller, I'm Jeff Barker. Good night, Austin.
Doubt the South, that's fine. We riding dirty at the same time, shine.